It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 407. Tonight I'm joined by Emmo.
Hello.
Grace.
Moving is the worst.
Kodra. And Thalen.
Proxy authentication required.
Moving is the worst, and that's why I intend to never do it again, ever.
I mean, I've been living in the same place since 1999, and any discussion of moving elsewhere has largely been nixed because we don't like to move.
I would have to move a literal ton of more than a literal ton at this point, of comic books, among other things.
Books are also
no. That's not even starting on the just regular text books. I have lots of those too, books. Not text books. Yeah. Books that are text.
Physical.
Not comic books.
Actual novels and things. Yeah, I have that problem.
The key to moving books is limiting your box size.
Yes.
And like magic cards weigh a lot too. And I guess that sort of segues into, I don't even know, this topic. So for anyone who hasn't been following the controversy this last week, Wizards of the Coast is selling proxy cards now, aka non-tournament playable, gold bordered, non-standard backed Magic the Gathering cards of Alpha Beta Unlimited cards, and they're in packs of 15 cards, and they're $1,000 for a pack of 4 of them. 4 packs.
Yes, you too can pay way too much money for a pack of randomly chosen Magic cards that you can't actually play with.
So, I feel like I have been waiting for this moment because for a while we have been on a trajectory that Thalen and I will remember, and Ammo too, will remember very clearly of when comics crashed.
Yep.
Where every month somebody was producing a new, lenticular cover.
It's a new number 1 with a lenticular cover and foil, and it's limited edition, and yeah.
So
they were producing comics for the collectors, for the people who wanted them for investment, not for the people who wanted to read comics.
And we've been going down that path with Magic for the last 3 years. The introduction of set boosters, the introduction of collector's boosters, the increased price tag of all this stuff. Because for a long time, the most fancy item you could get was one of the LGS only Modern Masters set. And I thought they were kind of a bridge too far, but they did provide a lot of needed reprints for playability. And sure, okay, I can kind of see charging $8 a pack for them, so double the normal price. And then came the set boosters, which are more than a normal pack, but have screwball odds so that you might pull 3 mythics from the same pack. Then the collector's boosters came. And actually, I think maybe collector's boosters came before set boosters, but they're here's all these 3 or 4 different variants of cards that you can get, each one of them rarer and with fancy things like engraved foils. And now we have 30th anniversary collector's edition boosters. And I don't know, I feel like we've reached the point of saturation, because I was shocked to hear both the MTG finance people and the MTG gameplay people all coming out with a unified voice that this is garbage.
Yeah.
And what's weird about it, though, is I've never seen excitement turn to frustration quite so fast as this one, because there's another product that existed from the history of Magic that was the original collector set and the international collector set. So way back in the day, and this is from the era when Magic was hard as hell to get a hold of. You could buy a box set for $50 that included one of every card in the set, but they were in gold border square cards, square edges, slightly longer than an average card. So they're basically trading cards. Not trading cards, but like non-sports card looking cards.
Not for play.
Yeah,
cards.
like they reminded me a lot of all the movie trading cards that you used to get. Like they were that kind of format. They were printed on a rag card stock instead of the multi-layer card stock that Magic cards are. They were definitely not designed to be played. They were just designed for someone who wanted to look at the full set of artwork.
Yep.
And over the years, those sets have gained value too, because sheer desperation of people trying to get their hands on a piece of power in Magic the Gathering, whatever it comes in. And like, I know a lot of those sets didn't survive because people would buy them and trim them to fit and then play them in card backs as proxies for the actual cards. Like, I saw a lot of that. So, okay, yeah, those probably do have value. They were a short run, but like now a full set of those is $20,000.
Yeah, the collector stuff.
Yeah, like the original collector stuff is $20,000 for a full set.
They're generally considered to be like acceptable proxies to a lot of people.
Right, yeah. So I think a lot of the community heard this. So like it leaked and then the announcement came out. And in the time between it leaked and the announcement and people reading the announcement, it went from excitement to just depression.
Yeah, well, because the price point, right?
Right, because people were thinking, oh, sweet, they're going to reprint Collector's Edition, but like actually make them look like the gold border playable cards that were like the collector's decks. And those were cool. Like those were fun things to play with your friends. And, you know, like maybe if they had even if they had put it at like a $500 price point for a full collector set, that would have probably been reasonable too. But like $1,000 for 4 packs.
4 boosters.
Yeah,
and it is entirely likely you're not going to pull anything from those.
Yeah.
No.
There's a lot of laces and other crap that clog up that rare spot. Nobody wants a thought lace.
No, because again, original Magic had a lot of garbage cards.
It did. It had a lot of crap. Like for every Black Lotus, there's also God, I don't know, Might Stone that takes the same spot or whatever. So yeah, like I don't know who the product's for. So like it's being universally shunned by the people who actually buy classic cards. And it's being shunned by all the people that are more modern that are like, what the hell is this even for?
Well, the thing is it's still like explicitly tournament not playable.
Right.
And so like, what is the point? And this kind of got people on the MTG Twitter conversation around like what's the problem with proxies in general? And it's like generally most people are like, yeah, whatever. Like if this isn't a tournament, play with a proxy.
Yeah, I mean like and that's the thing is like, okay, I own a set of proxies. Like I paid $20, got sketchy as hell from China proxies, and it was like a set of 155, including Power 9 and every powerful card from, you know, the pre-Urza's Saga series that are heavily chased, just to play with them. Like, it was $20. Like, that's fine by me. For like $200, there are sites out there that you can print an entire 720 card cube for like $200 that's entirely proxy. That's a better option than buying these $1,000 4-packs of cards that don't make any sense.
I mean, because these cards are not intended for that. Like these cards are intended for people who just want to own a fancy card. These cards are for people who want NFTs.
Yes.
I feel like if it had been $1,000 for a full set, people would have grumbled and paid it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because there's stuff like, you know, Moxen and Black Lotus and stuff like that being reprinted in this. That like the people with that much money to just blow on effectively, collector's items, they would do it.
But like all of the folks that actually buy vintage cards are like, okay, at $1,000, you're like halfway to buying an actual Mox.
A third of the way.
Well, like if you get a lower quality one, you can. Yeah, I mean, like the pricing drops pretty severely once you get the quality. But still, like you can buy actual Power 9 cards or get close to it for the price of like, somebody figured out that you'd have to buy, I want to say like 6 of these bundles to have any reasonable chance of pulling Power 9. So like for $6,000, you can absolutely just go buy an actual card. It's nonsense. It's just pure nonsense.
But these are fancy and special.
The only thing I can think of is that the people that will probably buy these are the people who want to open packs on YouTube.
Yeah, they're an investment. It's like Turok. It's like Turok number 1. You got to get your Turok number 1. It's only going to go up.
Can only go up.
I actually liked the Valiant Turok comics. I really did.
I mean, they were fine. They did not need to print that many copies.
No.
The demand was not there.
So, like, there's a giant bookstore here in Tulsa called Gardner's, and I know I've talked about it before. Where basically it's kind of a tax dodge. The guy that owned it also owns one of the most profitable income tax businesses in town, and he ran the bookstore at a loss to soak up the profits from the income tax business.
Aha.
And like, the people who got their taxes would get like gift cards every time they got their taxes to go buy books at Gardner's. Anyway, they have a ton of comic books. They just have overrun of old comic books, poorly sorted. Nobody really cared about it. But like you can flip through those long boxes and there's just the cruft of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the DC Marvel crossover crap.
Hey, those were good. Those were real good.
But like they were printed to oblivion.
They were.
Like,
but those might actually be worth something because they will never be collected or reprinted.
Right. They might be at this point. But like there's a lot
Disney
of 2099 stuff. 2099 was overprinted.
It was. Yeah.
But like it's just you can flip through these bins and see that era.
Yeah.
Living in infamy.
It's always interesting to go into a comic book store and you can tell by just a quick run through their back issues if this is a comic book store that survived the crash or not.
Yes. Because they're stuck with so much of it.
Yeah.
Like the one that the store I grew up with, like, I don't know, he would turn all that crap that he could sell into grab bags and give them to kids.
Mm-hmm. Just boxes and boxes of like books for $0.25 and like a $1 for a bag of like 5 comics that you don't know what they are. It's probably just going to be garbage, but maybe you don't already have them.
And I think time will tell, like, whether or not this really is the breaking point. But like, it feels like we're getting close to it because, like, I went through this with baseball cards, because I worked at a card and comic shop, and then a couple years later, the same thing happened with comics.
Yep. I mean, it's those same people that the people that got out of the previously failing collectors markets quickly enough move on to the next one, like locusts, and they are currently very heavily in the trading card game market. And when you start to see the locusts pull out, it's about to crash.
Right, and we've already seen the locusts kind of pulling out of Magic the Gathering, and a lot of the same people that were buying and betting on buyouts in Magic the Gathering a few years ago are now heavily involved in the graded video game market.
Oh, yeah, that one's gotten big in recent years.
That's the new grift. Yeah. And like I follow a local game store on Instagram, and every week they'll post like, these are the hot new things that we got in. And it's like, I don't know, it's like Chrono Trigger for like $120 and
Oh, the grading companies, how I hate them.
Yeah, it's just nonsense. And so
Because if you're one of those poor saps that actually wants to use the thing, that actually wants to read the comic, or actually wants to play the game, well, yeah, no, you can't, because they've all been sealed inside plexiglass slabs for collector value. Screw you. I don't know. I still wish.
remember,
and I know
friends, piracy is a moral imperative.
it is. I still wish. I'm sure they're never going to do it. I just wish they would. I wish Wizards of the Coast would effectively remake Duels of the Planeswalkers and do it with DLC. They could release the various sets as DLC over time.
Well, they did that with the first game, because there was the base game, and then they released several expansion packs for that base game.
They did, yeah. The base game comes out as with alpha, and maybe alpha up through antiquities included or something. I don't know, and then just additional cards, and actually have a way to play a career mode where the new cards get introduced as it goes along. That would be fun, but they're never going to do it.
No, they're not.
And even if they did do it, there would be missing cards for good reason. There are cards they're never going to reprint, and they shouldn't reprint those cards. And that's but so it'll never be the same as it was. But it'd be nice.
It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out in the next couple months, because I said this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it, that a lot of products are stagnating and either dropping in price or sitting still on MSRP. And it feels like the momentum that Wizards was riding during the pandemic is just gone. And that's truth with a lot of things. There's a lot of markets that were artificially inflated by the pandemic. And now, games aren't selling quite as well. Magic stuff isn't selling as well. I'm sure comics has probably had their own hit.
Does this mean that I might be able to buy houseplants at regular houseplant prices again soon?
Oh my god. Please, are they nonsense too?
What? Pandemic's killed the houseplant market?
Lots of people got super into fancy houseplants during the pandemic.
Oh my god.
I hadn't even thought about that. I bet for a while there it was real hard to get yarn.
Yep.
I bet for a while there it was real
much.
hard to get yeast.
Yep.
That was absolutely a thing. Yeah.
Both of those are very much things that I experienced firsthand.
The weird one recently was about 6 months ago. There was a pasta shortage for just ready-made pasta.
Well, okay.
Which made no sense at all. But our local Walmart was always out. It was just a wasteland apparently in the pasta aisle. But hey, supply chain issues have fixed themselves with the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
You no longer have to reserve it. It's just available to buy and ship.
I gotta decide if I want to buy one of these things. I probably should.
You need one, Thalen. They're pretty great.
I need one at some point after moving.
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of trailblazing and doing stupid things with mine. And by then I'll have guides for you to follow if you want to do the same stupid things. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, like nature is healing in some ways and in other ways not yet. Halloween event in Ooblets is going on. I have not touched it. Great. How is it?
It's adorable. This is mostly just a public service announcement. If anyone has not yet played Ooblets, you should do this thing. But also, if you have played Ooblets and haven't played it recently, you should duck in because there's a Halloween event and it's cute. You just get the chance to go around to all of your friends in town and trick or treat and get candy and purchase adorable costumes for yourself and your Ooblets. It's not a huge, convoluted event. It's very small and straightforward, but the costumes are cute. All my Ooblets now have adorable little bat wings, and I love it. So yeah, would definitely recommend. I think it's going on until like early mid-November, so you got some time.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, it says November 15th, and apparently there's some riddles to solve.
Yep, there's some riddles to solve. There's sort of like one kind of puzzle quest happening, and has a good reward for that. And yeah, get some spoopy wallpaper for your house, and dress up like a gloopy long legs with a top hat. It's good. Ooblets is so wholesome and good.
Ooblets is entirely the reason why I figured out how to get Epic Games Store running on my Steam Deck, because it's not available on Steam.
It is a worthy endeavor.
Okay, Kodra. Mario Odyssey might have too many controls.
So yeah, I've been chewing over this one, but I was playing Mario Odyssey today, and like I've been watching a bunch of people do like various speed runs, and I'm now starting to like get a better grasp of all of the ways that Mario can move in that game. And there are a couple of big new ways that Mario moves that are unique to Odyssey. So I'm going to start off with, in Mario 64, Mario had a pretty complicated move set. Like between the like stuff like the long jump, the backflip, the way he does wall kicks, like all of that stuff has basically been baked into the Mario like move set, 3D Mario moveset ever since Mario 64, and none of that's gone away. So if you remember how to do all of those moves, those are still here. There's also now the ability to throw your hat, Cappy. That's the big like thing for Mario Odyssey, is you have a cap you can throw around and like take control of various enemies, but also like you can use it to collect items. So being able to send your cap in certain directions is very important. Also, your cap can hang out in midair if you hold down the throw button. And then if you land on your cap, it'll give you a bonus jump. And so paired with that is also the ability. So ground pounding is another thing Mario has always been able to do. But now Mario can cancel the ground pound animation with a forward dash, like with a forward leap out of it. So a lot of like the actual like Mario just is able to fly stuff is doing this ground pound cancel onto your hat so that you can get that extra bounce and then throw your cap and yeah, that type of stuff.
I feel like Mario isn't the platformer where you should be dealing with cancels and
So the good news is none of this is required to like beat Mario. It's all there, and it's definitely more a thing they're like, hey, do you want to find some secrets? I bet you like secrets if you're playing a Mario game. There's lots of secrets here. The other thing that I discovered is there's now a roll where if you duck and press Y, you start rolling forward and you continue rolling. And the real trick is it's got motion controls. So if you want to roll fast, you have to shake your controller up and down really quickly.
Oh boy.
No, thank you.
This was what I discovered when I found a time attack moon that required me to do roll maneuvers.
That all kind of sounds miserable, I'll be honest.
It's very fun, but boy, Mario is a lot more complicated. And like, I used to mostly be like, yeah, he's complicated, but I've sort of got this whole moveset. Now I'm definitely like, okay, where are my buttons again? And I love complicated movesets. I play Celeste, but yeah, this one's definitely pretty complicated.
I don't remember how far I made it into Odyssey, but I didn't make it terribly far.
I mean, the base game of Odyssey, fortunately, doesn't really require any of this and is still a nice, happy, fun Mario game. But if you want to find every single Korok seed, you're gonna have to do some nonsense.
This is true.
Which
I will never find every Korok seed.
I mean, yeah. I've not found every Korok seed. I need to put more time into Breath of the Wild in general, though. I made the mistake of purchasing it for the Wii U, and so if I'm gonna play that again, I'm gonna have to start over from scratch.
That's kind of what stalled me out as well. Is I bought it for the Wii U, was playing the hell out of it, and then I got a Switch, and I rebought it for the Switch, but like I also had to start back from scratch, and then I eventually played through it on a Wii U CMU on the PC, and that's how I ultimately finished it. But because no durability really improved my experience.
Yeah, have we figured out if they're going to have durability or not in the next one?
No, I don't think it's been explicitly talked about, but I assume because they considered it a key part of the design of the first one. So I don't know. I mean, Yuzu runs really well on the Steam Deck, and also apparently the Steam Deck video that talked about it being in stock accidentally had a screen with Yuzu on it, which is the Switch emulator. They quickly took that trailer down and replaced it with one that has like Portal in the place where on the bar where Yuzu was.
I have found a game that mostly doesn't really work well on the Steam Deck.
Oh?
Yeah, One Shot.
What is One Shot? I don't remember what One Shot is.
It's a cute game where you play as a cat and nothing weird is going on.
Okay, yeah. You have literally one shot, and you have to determine when to use it. I remember reading up on this after you mentioned it, I think, a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh. It's probably been more like months. It's a game I really recommend people play, but if you're playing on your Steam Deck, apparently there is like you're gonna have to go do some you're gonna have to muck around in user lib, which definitely seems like a step beyond where I'd be comfortable.
Yeah, no, like there's a certain line, and you know, when Tam was on last, we were talking briefly about that. Like, there's a lot of things I don't mind doing that he kind of balked at, like because he was asking me how New World runs on the Steam Deck, and I said it's great. You got to drop into desktop mode and install Proton Easy Anti-Cheat first, but once you've done that, and that's literally just like go into the discovery tool and type in Proton Easy Anti-Cheat and install it there. But like once you've got that installed on your system, and it didn't really require you to do anything other than just like click a button and install, it works great. And I think he was kind of throwing me some side eye at that notion. He's doing a very stock experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like with the Steam Deck, I would be willing to do a small to medium amount of nonsense to do like things like get the Epic Game Store to run. But I don't know, there's probably a line. But it seems like using desktop mode to install something quickly doesn't seem like too big of an ask.
I'll be honest, like nothing I've done to me really felt like I was doing much. Like I've yet to do anything that required me to like open up a text editor and edit config files. It's just been installing some stuff in a specific way, or, you know, doing some stuff on a console, like a command line shell prompt, to type like a command in there, but not anything terribly painful. And I've kind of stopped doing that because at some point I'm going to upgrade the hard drive, and I don't want to have to start from scratch all over again.
The step I am seeing listed here is you have to link the game's librt.so.1 to, you have to like delete that and link it back to your system's librt.so.1 because it's packaged with its own
okay, so you just got to do a symlink. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
a lot.
Not super painful, but like it's reasonable, but like, yeah, no, I could see how that is not a line most people would want to cross.
Yeah.
Like I said, like the best thing that I figured out on day one was that I could use Steam Link software as a remote desktop tool to connect into desktop mode and just use a mouse and keyboard in desktop mode, and just run it off off my main screen, like on a computer. And that sped up a lot of processes.
I'm here to say that more people should play One Shot, though. And I would definitely, even though I know that like It is now available on the Switch. I would still recommend playing it on your desktop. Although I might be wrong. Maybe they've done something really cool with the Switch version.
So something that happened this week is we finally have a date for when the Brimstone Sands patch for New World is going to land.
Woo-hoo.
It is going to be on the 18th of October. Unfortunately, it's causing a lot of consternation because the quote-unquote fresh start servers that people were wanting to do won't be available until November 3rd.
Oh man, how is New World constantly plagued with these timing issues?
I don't know.
This seems like it should be easy.
New World is constantly its own worst enemy.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
They are. I think part of it was they didn't think anybody would want fresh start servers until folks played the PTR and are like, hey, let's do fresh start servers. And in their minds, they're like, okay, we'll do our current release cycle and then do fresh start servers. But if you don't have them on the 18th,
Yeah.
it kind of negates the purpose for them.
The point is to be able to play the new patch
Right.
on the new servers.
So I don't think we were gonna do a fresh start server anyway, because I know Elian wants to be able to play with us eventually, but also doesn't want to start over from scratch. So if we had really started on a fresh start server, that would have been locked out because they were disabling all transfers. So yeah, I probably put way more stress into figuring out a server than anyone else did. But I also feel partially responsible for the mess of nobody being able to roll on the server that we started on originally. And I don't want a repeat of that.
Yeah.
The problem is with the fresh start servers not being available, a bunch of people are probably going to pile on to whatever the lowest pop servers that are available are.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I chose the one that we've chosen is it is so low pop that even if there's a pile on, I think it'll be fine. But also there's a movement of people that are just not going to touch the game until the 3rd. So I don't know how it's going to shake out.
I guess that's one way to go about it. I was going to say that, they're going to release the fresh start servers and everyone will have already rolled on the regular servers when the patch came out and no one will be on the fresh start and they'll go, boy, let's see, there wasn't actually any demand for a fresh start server.
This is probably what happened also with the demand for cross-region move. Because I was definitely on the hook, and then I was like, oh, I've waited 2 months. I'm just done with this game.
Right, exactly. I think everyone had that moment. That's the piece that I wish they would understand is the decisions that they made at launch that were super freaking short-sighted basically lost them the majority of PvE MMO players. The ones that care about playing on servers with people they know. The social gamers. And based on my very unscientific Twitter poll from a few weeks ago, that's the wild majority of players care about being on servers with their friends. Because I don't remember what my choices were, but they were basically it's super important. It's a nice to have, and then don't really care, and I prefer to play alone. And 80% were basically the first two options. It's either really important or it's a nice to have.
Yeah, I'm curious how it ranks up to some other priorities for people, but yes, I don't, and that doesn't surprise me because I think it's probably a very high priority for most people.
Yeah, especially the kind of people who, follow Bell on Twitter.
Yeah, I get it was a grossly unscientific poll because I already have a specific type of people that follow me. So they're probably going to align to some of my thoughts anyway, but yeah, it definitely felt oh, you just lost your PvE players by having not sorted out your server strategy. And I guess they're launching new servers on the 18th, but they're just not going to have these special rule set fresh start server. And part of my reasoning for the server that I ended up picking is it shares a rule set with 3 other servers, and combined, there's a pretty healthy population between all 3 servers. So that in a few months when they collapse them, because they collapse along the server rule set, that will probably turn into still a reasonable server to play on. I am pumped. I'm ready to go with a fresh lease on Eternium.
I am excited about this. I think it's going to be competing for time, possibly with the new Mario Rabbids game.
But so New World is kind of on the precipice of a potential revival if they don't shoot themselves in. Like, their numbers have been going up steadily, and now they're back number wise to roughly where they were at the beginning of this year. So it got me thinking, like, are game redemption stories just more common now than they were previously? Because when Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn had its big redemption story, it was kind of a totally unheard of thing. Like, nobody would have expected a game that bombed that hard to ever turn it around and launch. And still, the 10 years or so that they put into turning that game around is actually, it wasn't 10 years. It was what, 3-4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, still, that's a lot. But looking out, like, there's a lot of games that bombed hard at launch that are now in pretty stable states. You know, Destiny 1 at launch was not a great game. It was fun to a point, but then it was not super good after that. Destiny 2, when it launched, had a ton of problems and was not really good for a while. Fallout 76 had a lot of problems at launch and is now a really good game. No Man's Sky has had this colossal turnaround to where now it's just this beloved thing that every time they release content, and that was review bombed into the ground.
Yeah, that was the story I was thinking of. Like, that one's doing great now.
But, like, there's been a lot of them where if the developer can buy enough time to put in the work, that eventually there's a redemption story in the play. Like, right now, Cyberpunk 77 is going through this with the popularity of the Netflix series. And the game itself is in a great standpoint. Like, but I liked it at launch, so I am probably a bad judge. But, like, now there's a bunch of eyeballs on the game realizing that this game is really good. It's just, I don't remember quite the redemption cycle that we've seen lately from the past.
Everything is early access.
Well, and I think part of it too is, like, I think it's a sign that everything keeps getting thrown out not quite ready for prime time, and given another year or two of, like, if they can survive long enough to put in a couple years more work, the game ends up being great. I mean, but I can also remember this to some extent with Diablo 3. Diablo 3 at launch was not great, and it wasn't really until Reaper of Souls that it was a great game. And I wonder, is it just that there's now alternate sources of revenue that can somehow keep the lights on until the team can turn it around?
With these games?
Yeah. Is this a side effect of basically everything being a live service? And if you can hook enough really dedicated fans, you can keep things going until you can put in the work to turn the game around and attract the attention of more eyes?
Possibly. Like, I do think it's kind of that, what I was saying, everything is early access now, and so it's possible for even big games to get the benefit of being early access, even though they say they aren't. And so they kind of, like, well, we've run out of resources to build this game without getting, like, without selling it, so it's time to start selling it.
Well, and I do wonder if there's also two stories happening, where I think a lot of games got a bad shake because of the meme factory that is YouTube. Prime example of that is Mass Effect Andromeda, which I thought was a perfectly fine game. I enjoyed it a lot at launch, but that game was memed into oblivion. And like my perspective may be different because a lot of times PC versions get patched easier or patched better than console versions. And since I'm not a console player, maybe I'm not getting to experience the cavalcade of weird bugs. Because like Cyberpunk 2077, by the time launch day rolled around, was fine on PC if you had a reasonable PC. But like, I know that was not the case on the consoles. I know the consoles were not in good shape.
Yeah, just a longer time to develop those.
Yeah. Well, and there's also like just the inherent, like, if I need to patch a console, there is a verification process that's going to delay that patch for a number of weeks. Whereas on PC, you can pretty much issue a patch same day if you need to. But like, there's absolutely games that were just feature incomplete. And I think that's different. So like No Man's Sky is an example that like, oh, yeah, no, it launched with a lot of things that weren't in the original marketing. But, you know, like a Cyberpunk or an Andromeda, like they pretty much were fine at launch. It's just the disappointed YouTuber reaction crowd that told everyone you shouldn't play these games. And it's probably easier to have a redemption when that was the case, where your game struggled just because public opinion, not because there were fundamental mechanical problems with the game.
Yeah, because the loud men with the goofy faces move on to yell about the next game, and the people who actually want to play it stick around.
Yeah, because like Fallout 76 was another game that was memed heavily, but like we had a lot of fun with it.
We did. Yeah, I would say that I did have a lot of fun, but we definitely stopped playing because there kind of wasn't a ton going on.
Right. And it took a long time before they actually added in a lot of long-tailed content in that game.
I'm actually curious. So now I can play that game, and maybe I should. If I play that game, is there now people who've been playing that game for long enough that they could just come and like murder me via the like open PvP? And will they?
I don't think that game had open PvP though.
Oh,
like,
it sure did.
Like, didn't you have to attack first before flagging or something?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought people could shoot at you, but it basically didn't hurt you unless you had shot at them.
It did like 10% damage. So that's kind of my question, right? If somebody is have people figured out how to take only doing 10% damage and use that as a griefing tool.
I don't think those players still play. Like the players that still play, I think are, in my experience, have been super helpful, willing to run around the map and help you finish quests type people.
Okay.
Kind of like a Final Fantasy 14 style community. Because like the griefers go away. Like that's the problem. Every time there's one of these game releases, Arcade, prime example, that was Grief City for the first 2 months. Then the griefers got bored and moved on. And when we eventually came back to it, like we're out questing in full flag PvP zones and there's nobody around to fight us. Or if they do, they just run past us. Like griefers move on unless the game is popular enough to maintain a community of griefers, aka what's the pirate game by Rare?
That terrible experience.
Yeah.
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of
Thieves.
Yeah, no, it's got a griefer community. Like
it's got a massive griefer community.
You know, I mean, then there's games like Albion Online that were designed to be griefy games. So of course they have a griefer community, but like a lot of games, the griefers give up when the easy targets go away. And if you come back after a certain amount of time, a community will have grown up around it that's pretty reasonable. I mean, that's been my, like, I don't play a lot of Fallout 76, but I mean, my experience is people are pretty chill in it.
That's good.
And that might be part of it too, is like, you know, these redemption stories don't really start until a community evolves and sticks around permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And then the temperature of that community determines what kind of player is attracted to it.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a kind of dumb thing on my blog.
You? What? Never.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it was, so like there were several conversations that I had in rapid sequence. One of which was the thread with Toadchild the other day of everybody suggesting horror films.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple versions of that play out on Twitter as well. So it planted the seed in my head, like, I want to do a listicle, because why the hell not?
You aspire to be a BuzzFeed writer?
It's okay. So that's a whole other thing. Like, I have this entire experience missing from my internet usage of BuzzFeed. Like, I've probably read something from BuzzFeed, but like the whole thing that happened with the Try Guys, like that was complete just empty spot in my my mind.
Yeah,
I knew nothing of them.
I had never heard of them until that point. It's
like I knew BuzzFeed existed as a concept, but like I don't know if that I've ever watched anything from BuzzFeed.
But also, Bill, don't you know the proper way to do a listicle now is to do it as a YouTube video and make sure and drag it out long enough that you can monetize it?
and it has to be like a computer voice.
Oh yes,
doing the things. Yeah.
Well, isn't that TikTok?
It's TikTok. Oh God, I hate that voice on TikTok. I hate that voice on TikTok. Oh God, it's horrible. Yeah. So I decided like there's no way in hell that I could do a top 10 list of horror films. That is entirely too broad of a list. Like I consume too much horror content. So I started doing them on subgenres.
Okay. Yeah.
So I posted zombies and I've posted vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And Thalen has taken umbrage with my vampire list.
How do you leave out From Dusk to Dawn?
I don't like it.
I
just don't.
I don't understand
this
how
is
you
this
can be
is my
a child
list.
of the 80s and leave out From Dusk to Dawn.
I don't like that
allowed.
movie. I just don't. Like whatever is it Seth Gecko? Is that the
Yeah.
I think I don't like Clooney. I think that's the problem. I think I just don't really like George Clooney.
But everybody likes George Clooney.
Look, his list had the Lost Boys on it. That's all that I cared about.
That's the other one that if you're a child of the 80s, you can't not put the Lost Boys on this list.
The Lost Boys is admittedly like it's a major film for me because like it is the movie that got me into the Marvel horror comics. And I know I talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about that Werewolf by Night was going to be a thing, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yes, we can.
But like, I was convinced that the comic books that the Frog Brothers had were real comic. No, they're just like single panels. Like I've actually seen them now, and it's kind of like the Grail Diary from Indiana Jones 3. It's just pages that repeat over and over.
Yeah.
But like I thought they were real. So like I was on a mission to find those things.
And boy, there sure was similar enough stuff that you could find.
Yep. I found
from Marvel and DC both, honestly.
Marvel was way easier to find.
Marvel would have been easier. DC's horror comics were longer ago at that point. I don't think they were really doing much right then. I feel like that would have been before Alan Moore took over Swamp Thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, so like I got into, the Dracula comics, the Werewolf by Night, the Son of Satan stuff.
Yes.
Man Thing.
Good old Man Thing. I'm hoping beyond hope. And admittedly, I already own all these comics as individual issues because of course I do. But with like Man Thing showing up as a character in an MCU thing, maybe they'll actually reprint the Man Thing series that DeMatteis did a few years back. That was really good. It only ended up running like 7 issues, but it was very, very good.
Yeah, so I've started doing this, and I'm sure next week I'll do 1 or 2 more. I'm kind of tentatively working on a slasher films one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly you need werewolves.
I have to do werewolves. Yeah,
there's so many good werewolf options.
I mean, I feel like I'm gonna have to give the nod to Howling 2 over Howling 1.
Yeah, I can buy that.
I mean, American Werewolf in London has to be on there though.
Classic.
But yeah, like, so I decided to like start doing subgenres, and like since it's December, it seemed very not December. It's
October. No,
It's
it's
October.
only December if you count December as the 10th month.
I mean,
It's only December if you go to Home Depot and see all the Christmas decorations up already.
Oh no.
Oh, everywhere.
That
It's
was
everywhere.
mortifying.
It's not just-
I mean, yeah.
So I am not a horror person. I famously attempted to play Amnesia Dark Descent and didn't even get to any scary bits before I had to turn it off. But so are these movies generally scary or campy, and like what do you look for in horror?
So my perfect horror film is more a dark fairy tale
Mm-hmm.
where there's a lot of world building. There's a lot of, almost elder god type forces that are working against the protagonists.
Yeah.
Like I like a film that has a world that's been built out, and I think part of the reason why I love horror films so much is, to be truthful, growing up in the 80s and 90s, that's also where you got most of your science fiction.
Yes.
Yep.
So much of the sci-fi and fantasy that was coming out then was horror.
Yeah, so like you got your cyberpunk in your horror movies. You got like all of the fringe genres that I'm also into were being made as horror film because mainstream didn't care. Like you got your Total Recalls and things like that, but like for the most part, like it was feast or famine.
Yeah, you had a lot of horror movies that you had slasher movies, and you had movies with lots of that had like basically jump scares, but they were just one subset of horror coming out at that time. They were by no means even the majority of horror coming out at that time, and I feel like the jump scare style of horror took over, and
Yeah.
I hate those.
I
don't
too.
want that. That's not what I want out of a horror movie.
Well,
To the point that like a lot of times like my wife was like very surprised that actually I like a lot of horror movies because I stay far away from modern horror mostly. I don't want to watch Saw. I don't want to watch
No torture porn, please.
No. God no. No torture porn, no jumps. I mean, like you can have like things like, there's something the cat leaps out, but
like I
but
was
not
really
just,
into
like,
monster
not
films.
just that. There needs to be more to it than that. And yes, there needs to be a mythos.
Right. Like
one of my all-time favorite horror movies is Hellraiser. It's a very gory movie, but it's got a mythos. Like
right. So
this is a world, a setting.
Speaking of which, the new Hellraiser is phenomenal.
All right.
It is
I guess
so
I'm gonna have
good.
to watch it.
It is so good. Like basically,
I think
for
I gave
the
up
most
after,
part,
was it Hellraiser 4 that was Hellraiser in space?
yes.
I think that's the last one that I watched. I
Like,
watched that one. I was like, okay, that was just silly.
I thought Hellraiser 4 was fine-ish, but like from there it got worse. Like it got real worse. You could realistically, like, if you're gonna go back and watch Hellraiser films of the originals, just watch the first 3 and call it good.
Kind of iffy on even the third one. I get like the third one. There's an explanation for why Pinhead is now the like just raving monster that's just murdering everyone instead of the erudite character that he is in the first 2. But yeah, I don't know.
Like
definitely the first.
I like the campy. I like the campy Cenobites from the third one.
It's. I mean, yes. There's a Cenobite with CDs, and yeah, one with a
there's one with a camera lens that zooms.
It's there are some good Cenobite designs. It's true.
But no. So like the new Hellraiser film is it walks this perfect line of being its own thing and unique without trying to do anything to reboot the original series, but also does nothing to invalidate anything from the original series. Like,
okay,
it's a story. It's another tale of the Lament configuration.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one of the things that I wasn't sure about, was if this was meant to just completely replace the original, or if it was if it could theoretically exist in the same timeline, basically. Okay.
Yeah, like you could tell me that they're all connected and it'd be fine. Like there's nothing to indicate that that's not the case. But like it's also a unique thing. It's probably the best tale that's been told from a Hellraiser film, and it's got like and I did not know this going into this, but Pinhead is Jamie Clayton from Sense8.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. That's I had no clue.
And that was one of those things. Is like, man, they recast Pinhead. How cast Pinhead? But like she's a good actress, and I mean, if you're gonna do more Hellraiser, like sooner or later, you have to. Like,
it has the best Cenobites that I've ever seen. Like, I am obsessed with a couple of the designs. Anyway, I think Kodra, at some point, I think you were going to ask a question.
I was mostly the one thing that I probably say is a horror movie that I really like. Where does stuff like Zombieland fit in?
Horror comedy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, which
Shaun
is brilliant.
Yeah.
Little Monsters is phenomenal. It's also horror comedy.
Actually,
my wife hates horror. She loves Shaun of the Dead.
Is Hot Fuzz horror?
No, there's no horror elements to it.
It's a small town that's gone mad.
It's as horror as Night in the Woods is horror.
Oh my goodness! Are you gonna say Night in the Woods is not horror?
I mean,
it's horror adjacent.
It's definitely horror adjacent.
I mean, there's an eldritch entity at the end that's going to consume everything.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So like that is into the Cthulhu mythos, yeah, which is its own thing.
That's its own style of horror. Yeah, there are things that you shouldn't look too hard at. Yeah.
I don't know. More than anything, I am a fan of just the really bad B-movie monsters.
Oh yeah.
And that's, it's not quite horror. It sort of was supposed to be, I guess, but that's my jam. It's supposed to be scary, but it's really just bad and incredibly entertaining to watch.
You're not going to actually be scared of this. The original 13 Ghosts or something. Like,
yeah, no, it's not.
This is entertaining, but it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, so other horror movies that I've seen, and I was like, that is a good movie, and also I don't like horror movies, would be The Ring.
Yeah, see, that's the type of horror movie that I'm not into. Just, I don't
like
know.
That. I think the one that I always point to is the original Alien.
Yes.
Like, that is definitely a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah, like Sigourney Weaver is, Ellen Ripley is a final girl, like, by every definition.
Yep.
And she's damn good at it.
In multiple movies, in fact, in that trilogy or that series.
Yeah, and again, that's like, so much of the sci-fi that we were getting was horror movies. I mean, we had that, we had The Thing.
The Thing is phenomenal.
The Thing is amazing.
And I was just having this conversation earlier today, but the original of that is also good.
Yeah, it's its own kind of good. I mean, I like multiple versions of The Fog. They all have their own appeal. I mean, like, I was having this discussion with Lyle when I threw out the zombie list. Is like, there's like 3 different versions of Night of the Living Dead, and I like all of them for different reasons. I would heavily push the animated version, though. Like, if you're going to go back and watch the original, I would heavily push just watch the animated version, where they basically animated over the audio of the original movie, which allowed them to make some of the zombies not look so dumb.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing.
But like the Tom Savini remake of Night of the Living Dead is also really good for its own reason.
Well, and then also, I mean, those of us who grew up in the 80s, like, we were growing up during the height of horror movies aimed at kids. Like,
Gremlins.
Gremlins, yes.
Monster Squad.
Yep. Wolfman's got Nard. I mean, you had Fright Night on there. I mean, Fright Night is pretty...
Fright Night was so good. Like,
yeah.
Like, there's a lot of special effects in Fright Night that do not hold up anymore.
No, not in the
like,
slightest.
especially the bat.
Yeah, and that's why when they did the remake, I was kind of hopeful, and it just didn't.
That remake was not good.
No, it didn't capture what made Fright Night wonderful.
What
Well,
made
and,
Fright Night wonderful? What is Fright Night?
So Fright Night is this basically it's this kid who starts to realize that there's monsters, and he hooks up with this a like local television horror host, like Svengoolie, that kind of thing, and it's it's over there in the same area as it's over there in the same area as something like The Goonies, where you're like, or Monster Squad. It's that whole like the kid's the only one who realizes that something's going on and is the one that can
he
do
could see
something
through the
about it.
veil.
Yeah, it's that empowerment fantasy, especially when you're a kid watching it.
But, then basically he realizes that, the brand new neighbor next door might be a vampire lord.
Yep.
It's really drift compatible with the feeling of Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar tale, but like it's its own unique tale, which is really good. And it also like harkens back to a lot of the Vincent Price era more than like Lost Boys does.
This is what you were describing. Also, kind of was reminding me of Vincent Van Gogh, which might be a reference.
Yeah, that is absolutely a Vincent Price reference.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
No, it's just the like going and talking to the local horror actor.
Oh yes, that's basically the same. Yeah, it's like the former movie star, host of a horror program who ends up being the one that he like goes to for help, and yeah.
And the thing is there's a lot of franchises as well that if you dive down to the original film was great. The derivatives are not so great. Like Halloween.
Oh yeah.
The first Halloween is phenomenal. The first Nightmare on Elm Street is phenomenal.
I hope you like a lot of blood. Boy,
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood. But yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't know, like I just part of it too comes from growing up in the VHS era, and a lot of what that was renting based on box art.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
going
horror
to the
films
store and seeing, gosh,
horror films had great box art.
They had the best box art, like stuff that like you would see this and then just like for weeks you'd just be like fixated, like what could it be? What is that? What is that movie? It's like what?
Well, and a lot of them were actually just really fun movies, like Critters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Critters was phenomenal.
I love the
love
Critters franchise. They're so bad and so goofy, but they're just wonderful. I think also one of the things that I prefer horror movies where the protagonist does win in the end,
or at least there's a tentative victory.
Yeah, or at
like
least
I'm fine with you opening up like the final shot showing like, maybe it's not over.
Like the monster, like he still exists and is out there about it, but they've been driven off, sure. But something like the Lost Boys or Fright Night, where like like in the end the kids save save the girl and destroy the vampire and everything's good.
Yeah, that's maybe, and again, maybe I'm just not used to that, but it does feel like I think a lot of my exposure to horror has probably been some of the stuff that is less like that, because like The Ring does not end on a good note.
Yeah, no, it's so much of horror in the past decade or two, like the ending is at best Pyrrhic in so many of them, and often the protagonist just loses, dies, or is transformed, or is the new monster or whatever. And I don't know, like part of horror for me is you go through all of this terror and then make it out the other side.
Yeah, I think one of the only ones that's not that way that I still like a lot is Cabin in the Woods.
Yes. But Cabin in the Woods
it's its own thing.
Well, it's riding the same line that Evil Dead and Army of Darkness does.
Mm-hmm.
To where like it is a self-aware horror film. And by the same token, like I love Scream because it is completely self-aware. And it is both a lampoon of horror films and also is a great horror film. I did watch Day Shift as well, finally, and that is well worth watching if you've got Netflix.
What is Day Shift? That sounds vampire-y.
It is a vampire film. It's Jamie Foxx and Snoop Dogg are vampire hunters.
Yes.
But like not in a campy whatever the hell that airline movie was, Soul Plane kind of way. No, this is a legit film. Like it's good stuff. It turned out like it was a good fun little vampire hunter film. Also watched Werewolf by Night.
Werewolf by Night
which is only
fantastic.
Tangentially a horror film, but
yeah, like it's very much an homage to like old like Code era horror movies.
Universal Monster era
like
kind of stuff.
40s and 50s.
Yeah, Universal or Werewolf by Night is the beginning of Marvel's rebooted horror stuff. Because like Moon Knight fits into that world.
Mm-hmm.
Blade is going to fit into that world. Whenever we get Ghost Rider, it'll fit into that world.
Whenever we get Blade, since they've apparently like started over filming because the director left. So I have some concerns there. But yeah, I hope maybe we'll see a couple of these characters again. Werewolf by Night. They could always do Next Wave. That's two members of Next Wave that have been introduced to the MCU at this point.
I think we're gonna get Dark Avengers at some point.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, we're getting Thunderbolts.
Yeah,
and it's very much the like bad guy, like maybe run by the government, maybe just run by bad guys, like more.
It feels very Suicide Squad-y.
Yeah, it's very much the Red Bolt style of Thunderbolts, as opposed to the original that I prefer. But whatever.
I mean, there's a key member of Thunderbolts that's kind of hinted at maybe making a first appearance in the MCU soon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Wolverine?
No.
Oh no.
Okay.
I would say if you are not watching She-Hulk, you should watch She-Hulk. She-Hulk is amazing.
I am
it's
not,
so
and
good.
I know I should.
It's really so much fun.
It's so good.
So much fun.
I have not been watching TV much lately though.
I broke my usual rule of waiting until the series is finished so that I can binge it because I couldn't help myself, and She-Hulk is so good.
And the side characters are like so amazing in that show.
Like my only disappointment is that they didn't take the opportunity in episode before this most recent one to have Razorback in amongst that group.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Because Razorback is the best pig-themed Arkansan space trucker superhero.
I am very much excited. I'm amused that we've got confirmation that Wolverine's joining the MCU.
That's hilarious. I mean, they're probably going to kill him, but
it's still so good.
The thing is like, okay, so we've talked about this before, but like my favorite thing about where we are with MCU shows and where we are with Star Wars shows is they're all so wildly different that even if you don't like one, there's another one that's going to be totally different coming along behind it.
Yeah,
we're at that point where they know, like, we have this established setting. We can do any style of show within this setting, and they're taking advantage of that, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Like, I am definitely not as much of a comics person as some other people in this podcast right now, but I enjoy them, and there's definitely some that I have not really cared for, but that's fine because in a couple weeks there'll be another one, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about this era in the MCU that we're going through. And it was honestly one of my favorite things about when Guardians of the Galaxy was brought in as a movie, is like they're mining characters that the mainstream had no clue about.
Yes.
And making them entertaining. And it is like at some point, like, like you should read the comics, but still at some point you won't need to read the comics to know all these characters. Like there will be on-screen representation of them and it'll be great. And they ride this line so well of giving the wink and the nod to the people who know the long-term backstories, but also not making them require reading.
Yeah, like I definitely know who Man-Thing is and know all about how he works. None of that was necessary to watch Werewolf by Night.
Everyone should be Ted's friend.
Ted's great. He's a good guy.
But I also love monster, just like, kaiju films. So, I mean, like, I have a soft spot for big monsters.
I mean, he's also, it's also just like, it's a fantastic design that they made work really well on screen.
Because Man-Thing has always just kind of been this amorphous assemblage of parts.
Oh yeah,
way more than Swamp Thing. Like Swamp
Yes.
Thing, yeah, no, you're a mossy dude. Okay, we get it.
Well, I mean, and even down to personality, like always in the comics, like Swamp Thing will talk your ear off.
Right.
Like
yeah.
he is Man-Thing. I mean, Man-Thing in the comics is barely even sentient.
Man-Thing is a literal like elder god.
Effectively, yeah. He hangs out in the Everglades. There are certain things that will attract him, and mostly he's just doing his own thing. And yeah, and he's a walking pile of moss, and he's great.
I'll say it again. We're going through a renaissance of comic and property movies right now, and it's delightful. And
I would love to see them do something with Tomb of Dracula, like actually have like the Marvel version of Dracula as he was in the comics pre that terrible X-Men story.
Yeah,
that nobody talks about. Just like, I don't know.
I mean, it seems like the only thing that they've kept from Tomb of Dracula is Blade.
Mm-hmm. Mostly, yeah.
But I would highly suggest watching Hellraiser. I would highly suggest watching Werewolf by Night. To some extent, Daywatch, definitely worth watching. If you're not into horror films but are somewhat interested, feel free to check out my various top 10 lists. It will not be for everyone. I will go real hard on certain movies that I love. I still feel like everyone needs to watch Near Dark. It is my favorite horror film that no one has ever seen.
What movie?
Near Dark.
Near Dark? I don't think I've ever even heard of that.
Okay, so here's the premise. It is a lot of the folks from Alien. It's got actress who played Vasquez. It's got Bill Paxton. It's got Lance
Henriksen.
Okay. It is so it's set in Oklahoma, which is part of the reason why I love it too. It is basically this roaming, very VTES style pack of vampires that are trying to survive. And instead of holding up in a lair of some sort, they've got a blacked out RV that they go from town to town picking off the fringes of society. The thing about them is they don't have fang. So like they basically just have to wound somebody with a bladed weapon to drink blood. But, other tropes of vampiredom, apply. And it's basically a story of, kid who falls in with this roaming pack of vampires, not knowing what they are because he's into the young girl that's part of the pack. So, and it's a weird ride, but it's a good film.
Okay.
Bill Paxton is very Bill Paxton-y. It's kind of hard to find though, but
Bell, are you into trauma movies?
I liked them as a kid, but like I wasn't super into like Toxic Avenger and stuff like that. I mean, I enjoy them, but they're not really my style of.
Okay.
They're a little too campy.
Trauma movies tend to be a bit too over the top, goopy, and gory for me.
I mean, I like Elvira, but trauma films are kind of Elvira humor, but not, as witty as Elvira. I don't like some of my love of horror probably also comes from the fact that like in the pre-Fox era of UHF channels, a lot of the small channels would play horror films because they were cheap and they could get licensing for them. So like I watched a lot of them as well. Like I've talked about that was how I watched a lot of the Godzilla films.
I was gonna say that's why I have such a strong love for kaiju movies.
I mean that's so much why the kind of aging local horror show host is the trope that it is, because everywhere had one, or more than one.
Yeah, there was a local station late nights on Saturday nights, I think. There was just a guy that would come on and do a show and play a movie.
Like that was how you filled airtime in the late night hours.
Yeah, unfortunately, like if you start talking horror films, I will talk your ear off. I think that is about time. Any final thoughts about anything?
Real quick, have you guys watched this new Picard trailer?
No.
No.
There's a new Picard trailer. You should watch it. We can talk about it next time.
Okay.
All of my trailer
But everybody should watch it, because boy.
All of my trailer watching has been Owl House season 3.
Yeah. Oh, also speaking of New York Comic Con trailers, we finally got the Mario trailer.
Oh, right.
It's fine.
It's fine. Jack Black.
Jack Black.
Jack Black's going to be an excellent Bowser.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay? Keegan-Michael Key, I think, is going to be a really good Toad. Jack Black is going to be an amazing Bowser. And if for no other reason than that, I will watch the movie. Also, apparently, at New York Comic Con, where they showed the trailer, Jack Black came on stage, and he kind of teased the possibility that maybe Bowser might sing, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
That sounds great. Like everything you just said sounds great. I can't wait to watch those parts.
Yeah, I know.
The thing that's frustrating is like everyone was like, "Oh man, I don't think I would put Chris Pratt as Mario," and it's like, "Oh, but wait till you hear the voice," and it's like, "Okay, but this is just Chris Pratt's voice." Like,
There's
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
a little
it's
bit
the
of
same
a New York
voice he
thing there,
did.
but yeah.
It's the same voice he did for the Lego movie. I mean,
And
that's
admittedly,
fine.
I have no real attachment to Charles Martinet's voice specifically, because most of those Mario games I didn't really play.
Yeah, that's
Like-
kind of where I am too. Like, because that really started with the 64, and
I mean,
that's fine.
when I imagine Mario talking, the voice that I hear is Captain Lou Albano.
It is.
That's the
Do
voice
the
of Mario
Mario.
in my head. So I don't know. Like it wasn't terrible. There wasn't a lot to it of Mario's part. We heard him say like 2 lines. So yeah.
Maybe the
Bowser
movie
looks
will
cool.
be on like that, and it'll just be Bowser. That would be fine.
Yeah, Bowser can be the actual star of the movie.
Yes.
I'm here for this.
Okay. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.